Tosha. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the last name. How do you say it?
Platoshin.
Say it one more time.
Platoshin. It's Ukrainian.
Platoshin.
It's all good. My name is Lindsay, and I stand in truth. We are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. You claim you're committed to creating an environment where all children can succeed, all feel welcome, and all are valued. All children? Except, of course, when it comes down to defending biological realities? Except girls who feel unsafe and uncomfortable in the locker rooms with boys present? Your agenda's wording frames people who stand in the truth of material reality as hate speech, bigotry, or phobic of any kind. Hate speech nowadays is considered calling anything in our reality for what it truly is. We do not live in la-la land where anyone can be anything. This is reality we are defending here. Your agenda talks about growing numbers of groups seeking to divide our community and incite hatred. I think I smell projection. You are actively participating in dividing the community with your sneaky policies, hiding the truth of what you're really doing with words like diversity. You claim to celebrate diversity, but diversity is so far outside of the realms of what is ethical and moral. Do you include the pornography books in your inclusivity checklist? Brainwashing the youth into thinking they are born into the wrong body and that going against what you are born with as trendy and cool is not progressive. If anyone thinks they are something when they are
seconds.
not, they deceive themselves. The way of the wicked leads to destruction. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. We will not be overcome by evil, but we will overcome evil with good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hello there. This is Lindsay, your host of Live Through a Distorted Lens. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry. Thank you for joining today and listening to my podcast. Let me recap here because I uploaded the podcast last week before I went to the school board meeting, which is always on a Thursday. I don't know if I'm going to be able to squeeze those in before the Friday podcast from here on out. The first time I did because I was late with that podcast anyway. So I can't believe it's already been a month, but, this time around I'm like, Lordy, I'm bringing a jug of water, like a gallon. I brought dinner, I brought snacks, I brought a phone charger, I brought like a butt cushiony pillow thing that's for hunters, apparently. Got from Walmart. So, they did the usual thing, and there are two women on the board that don't wear a mask, are pretty conservative, and just, speak the truth, and it's great to witness them. And I've seen one of them at a couple of Austin Republican meetings. She was apparently on the Bannon Report interview show recently, and of course that was a hot topic that was brought up repeatedly during the school board meeting, like somehow just because she went on that show, therefore she does not care about children and the school, or they try to frame it as she did it because she's selfish, or I don't even know, because if you watch it, like these fools never do, she just is speaking the truth about what's going on in the school board, and how I think she's being sued. There's just, the whole Round Rock ISD is a whole entire hot mess of itself, which is so many things. So there was a moment where they were supposed to go to deliberate in the back room with that, God, I forgot her name. Let me pause for a second. Danielle Weston. They're supposed to go deliberate in the back room privately. I think I forgot to say that. And Danielle requested to talk it over, whatever the agenda thing was, or what they were addressing her with, out in the public, in front of us, the audience and people that are there to speak their mind about the community. And they actually agreed to. And it was this whole deliberation about how Danielle Weston forwarded some emails, or BCC'd some emails, that the trustees were a part of, and they were all butthurt, being like, you just shouldn't be doing that. And she literally, Danielle, had to bring her attorney up there to go sit with, next to her as they basically grilled into her. And this little whiny bitch of a man who never has anything like logical or applicable to what they're talking about, or even remotely nice to say every time he turns his mic on. He just has pure hatred in his heart. I mean, it's wild to watch these people just pretty much like fume with anger and hatred. Not Danielle, but these let's see, I think there's 7 of them, so 2 of them are not demons. It's the best way I can put it. Yeah, that Dr. Jun Zhao fell asleep last time, literally. I'm like, he's just so disrespectful in so many ways. Anyway, yeah, they're just whining about her BCCing. And there was a moment when Danielle was just like, because it was just dragging. They dragged this on and on and on. And she was like, listen, I'm a child of God. And the right side of the room, if you know where you're sitting in the audience, and you look to your right, or you sit on the left side, is these, trans, masked, vaccinated a-holes, and they just started cackling. Just because she said she's a child of God, which, if you don't know, that means you believe in Jesus and you're a Christian and whatnot. And Danielle did this great thing where she paused to really point out that they were finding that as a moment to start laughing, because they do record these meetings, and if you want to tune in on them, they're, I think, the 3rd or 4th Thursday of every month. You can go to roundrockisd.org to go watch live. And I don't know, I just thought it was not surprising that these people would just find that humorous in any way, shape, or form. There was multiple moments where these, trans colored hair people just would laugh inappropriately, and like we were clapping for someone that, I think it was public comment time, and we would clap, or I don't remember what it was. And this one guy was like, "This isn't a football game. Like, stop clapping." Like, what? As if they don't clap for whatever or anything they support. Apparently, which I wasn't a part of it then because I wasn't even living here yet, they were so bothered by clapping. They started doing this thing where, the best I can explain it is like you raise your hands and you do spirit fingers, like shake them back and forth, like hallelujah, kind of like a thing. It's ridiculous. Like, I understand clapping can be distracting, but anywho, they didn't drag it out as long this time, thank God in heaven. I really didn't feel like going either, just because looking at the agenda, and I'll read from it, there's, multiple agenda things. Let's see, this is action item M6 out of, I'm not sure which ones a public can speak on. I think all of them, but there's, this is, these meetings are very long, and you basically talk about, I don't know, approval of board minutes, approval of Westwood High School turf replacement project, approval to cast vote for election of Travis Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. I mean, all this stuff that half of it, I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? So, let me read from it. This is the what did I say? M6. Oh, I'm going to try not to cringe. Round Rock Independent School District, resolution condemning actions that divide our community and incite hatred. Whereas the United States has a rich history of immigration from nations all over the world, creating diverse communities throughout the country, including the Round Rock Independent School District, and I don't know why it's worded like this. It's just this like legality thing where every sentence starts with whereas and it's capitalized. Anyway, whereas as a board of trustees, we recognize and celebrate the diversity in our community and believe diverse cultural perspectives can inspire creativity, drive innovation, and stamp out discrimination. And whereas, as the Board of Trustees, we recognize and acknowledge that our community and state have historically struggled with issues of race, equality, and prejudice. And whereas, Round Rock ISD is a richly diverse community with more than 90 languages spoken in our schools. And whereas, in Round Rock ISD, we are committed to creating an environment where all children can succeed, all feel welcome, and all are valued. And whereas, it sounds so weird, but anyway, we recognize there is much work to be done in securing social justice for all. And whereas recently there has arisen in the United States a growing number of groups and individuals who threaten our democracy by seeking to divide our community and incite hatred. Now you see where I pulled this ridiculous wording and information from my speech that I did that I'm going to put at the beginning of the podcast that you probably already heard because, anyway. And whereas the Round Rock ISD Board of Trustees rejects and condemns all such groups and individuals whose ideologies are based on hate, violence, divisiveness, and intolerance, and whereas the Round Rock ISD Board of Trustees wishes to reaffirm its commitment to the well-being and safety of Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Jewish, Muslim, Arab, Asian American, Pacific Islander, and LBGTQI. Oh my God, that's a typo. communities and stands against hate speech and acts that target them. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Round Rock Independent School District that any groups and individuals who promote hate, violence, discord, intolerance, and are rejected and condemned. It will not interfere with the Board of Trustees' efforts to address, engage, and lead the district on issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to promote a deeper shared understanding of our community. Resolved this 16th day of December 2021. Oh, jeezy Pete's. What's so funny about that second to last paragraph is that they talk about, reaffirmed its commitment to the well-being and safety of, and they list off all these groups, and not a single white person is included in that group. I mean, a normal person. I'm not saying that blacks or anyone else is not normal, but I mean by, a lot of people are just white and don't identify with Jewish, Muslim, LGBT, indigenous, so on and so forth. So I'm like, they're literally leaving out a group of people, which is alarming, and it is directly divisiveness in and of itself. I'm basically repeating what I said, but what I really do recommend you guys to go and do is listen to the other people that spoke at the public, hearing thing, which is what I did, because the truth speakers and freedom fighters were really on fire this time, and it was astounding to listen to people and their feelings, and definitely this M6 was a hot topic where a lot of people brought it up, including myself, and there was this Asian woman that spoke a really beautiful thing, and she started crying, and just how much she loves America, and she's an immigrant, and so on and so forth. So, as soon as I spoke my thing, I was pretty much just like, I'm out of here, because it was late anyway, and just, I like to sleep at a reasonable hour as well. As much as I really didn't want to go, I was just tired, and as I was saying, just reading this draft of the resolution condemning actions that divide our community and incite hatred, this shit gets so exhausting, and this is one of the reasons why I definitely had to step away from researching and reporting on it, because it was just draining my soul, and it is one of those things that it's nice to just not read up on this stuff and kind of stay informed, really, because, there's so much crap going on in the world, and especially with the access of the internet, the ability to read, and be plugged into things that are going on all across the world, and not just in your local community, can be obviously really overwhelming. And it's hard for me not to pay attention to what's going on in UK, Ireland, everywhere. It's impossible for me to disengage. So it's important to disengage and go take a hike in nature, which I did this morning with my neighbors, which was awesome and just wonderful. Really cold. And last night we actually went on a bike jingle party where we dressed up in Santa stuff and had Christmas lights, and we biked around at night to see other people's beautiful homes decorated. And there's this whole block of 10 houses that someone's clearly a woodworker, and they had I almost said the night before Christmas. The night before Christmas, went all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. They had that on 5 different plaques of wood, and it was just really cute. The amount of effort these people go through to decorate their home. And this woman had a ballerina on her front lawn that was all lit up, from head to toe, completely made out of lights. And I'm and there's people hanging out in that front driveway, drinking wine and being at a fire. And I was like, did you make, you could just tell seeing stuff that people's lawn ornaments where you're I've never seen that in a store. And I was like, when did y'all make that? And the guy was like, yeah, my wife did, this Asian woman. And I was like, that is incredible. She also made this rat king out of chicken wire, which was also incredible. And I just love seeing creative stuff like that. Obviously, me being a creative person. And I told my husband, I was like, dude, we got to use our cosplay skills and start cracking with, I was going to say Halloween, but I'm not really sure if I want to decorate for Halloween anymore. Why would I want to do that? So we spent last weekend in Fredericksburg, and if you're ever in Texas, I cannot recommend any more than what I'm saying right now to visit Fredericksburg. We visited, I heard it's beautiful in Christmas time, and boy was it. It's so scenic. It's like a movie. Christmas lights and just Western stuff, and the whole town is a German sister city. So I'm German? Not that, Germans now are going full Nazi, but did not see that coming. I'm sure you heard that joke, but I do think there's a certain part of cultural Germany that is beautiful, and especially at Christmas time, the different countries, how they celebrate Christmas is always beautiful to me. in their practices. And, I love me some German beer. So very awesome, awesome, awesome. Go check it out. Even if it's not during Christmas, I definitely recommend that town. We had a blast. Oh, so what I was saying about that is that there was this Amish store, and I was like, what? So basically, it's like jars of jellies, and then they had the, other various food stuff, stuff to help your like foot ache and just, randomness from at home, like from scratch items that isn't big pharma related. And I love seeing that, obviously. And then they had this whole other separate showroom of furniture that you can literally order that the Amish have made. And I mean, it varies from like dining room tables to full bedroom sets with beautiful quilted quilts that are just gorgeous. Quilting is a very time-consuming thing, and these things are beautiful and accurately priced. A quilt for a bed is like $1,000. And, when we walked around and there's just seats and the quality is insane. Like we would open the drawers and it was all smooth. If you're adulting at any time in your life, when you get there, if you've already been through it, maybe you know a thing or two about furniture and how you like how certain furniture has a certain feel to it when you open a drawer, for example. So if you open a drawer and it's like rickety or crappy. I don't know if you've heard of a place called At Home, by the way. I've never heard of it until I bought something from Goodwill that said At Home. I thought it was a Target brand, but it's not. It's just this whole store named At Home. And I thought it was going to be like the quality of Marshalls. So I checked it out with my husband, and I couldn't believe how shitty the quality of their furniture was and is. I definitely recommend never going there and buying anything there. It's obvious this place is like for staging homes. Like photos for online, or you walking through and looking at it and getting a certain vibe or aesthetic. But wow, we opened a couple of drawers and it's like and just made out of like crap, not even like real wood. I don't know what the hell their wood is made out of. It's dog shit. Like you can see the floor models, no matter what it is, are like dinged up and scratched. I understand some scratches and dings because it's a floor model, but this stuff was garbage. So it's again called At Home. Don't go there. So tangent there, but we might consider getting some furniture items there, because I'm like, wow, what a better feeling than not supporting like big chain stores and supporting the literal Amish. So I left and I'm like, oh my God, can we become Amish, please? To my husband. I mean, that's like, to me, heaven. And I mean, sign me up. So they had these pamphlets there that I'm like, yes, I want to learn about the Amish. And I don't really honestly know much about them. I think they do believe in Jesus and Christ, so that's great and cool. So this one I'm going to read from is called Multimedia in the Christian Home, and I found it to be awesome. I got like 10 of these little pamphlets that are all different. I'm just going to start reading. He that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly, and shutteth his eyes from seeing evil, he shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him, his water shall be sure. Thine eyes shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is very far off. Isaiah 33:15-17. What are you seeing? Evil or the king in his beauty? Television continues to be impure and violent, and now the internet is, with all of its trappings of pornography and every perverted imagination of men's evil hearts. People today are being bombarded by a strong satanic enemy in the form of video and audio and entertainment. This formidable foe comes coupled with business programs, research tools, parts catalogs, travel planners, and other useful communication mediums. Every Christian home that succumbs to pressures to accept multimedia intrusions will become a battlefield for the souls of its children. No parents can afford not to safeguard themselves and their sons and daughters from this menace. Parents have tried for decades to convince themselves that they can control television usage by setting strict controls such as limiting programs and viewing times. The evidence is now in the long run, it does not work. If parents provide the instrument, children can provide the initiative and imagination to dupe the parents. And I'm going to jut in here and say I absolutely did that. We had AOL online, and my parents installed a time limit where I could only be on for like an hour, maybe at certain hours a day, like in the evening when I come home from school. And I absolutely found a way to log into the main account and change that. Like, children will always find a way around your, quote, safeguarding. In most cases, I continue. In most cases, children will find the ways and means to view what they want, exactly. Many parents have awakened to this fact too late, realizing that they should have safeguarded their homes at a higher level. Parents should not allow the instrument in the first place. What about the danger to parents? What about the fact that children often know what is evil, and yet they hear their parents justify it and keep it? When parents justify what the children and they know is evil, they do something tragic to their own and their children's consciences. One standard argument is that children will somehow be stunted in their social and scholastic development if they are not allowed access to the available information highways. In Bible-based home settings, this has proven untrue. Children develop reading comprehension and communication skills unequaled by those who spend their time viewing what is available on the screens. We make a serious mistake when we rob our children of the disciplines of personal study and mind-expanding research without multimedia. A good book is much better for wholesome development of the mind and character. Add to this the need for solid spiritual values which God implanted in us in spite of what the evolutionists would have us believe. Those created in the image of God can by faith reach the full potential of his purpose for us. A true virtual experience is when people who believe the word of God, the Bible, find every question answered and their search satisfied in Christ. The values of truth are not found in electronic media, but in the book of God. You and your children must read and study the Bible. You must desire to understand the truth before you will seek it. If the emptiness of a life without God sends you on a search for solid foundations to build your life on, ask God to show you truth and give you an appetite for truth. Here's a quote from the Bible. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. Trying to flip the page one-handed. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. Matthew 7:7. Seek not for truth in an environment that largely resists truth. Jeremiah 10:2. I like that. Says, actually, I don't know if that was a Bible quote, but I still like that. No, it's not. This is a Bible quote, though, here. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen. Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, is found in Ephesians 5:11, which is one of my favorites, by the way. It's the Bible I have says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. We should conclude from this that it would be a shame to view, write, sing, imitate, glorify, or have anything at all to do with what God says is evil. Which is why I'm going to put in here and say, I don't know if I want to celebrate Halloween stuff. The pumpkin, I don't know, it's weird because we've become so far separated from these traditions that have been created. And I've even heard of certain Christian traditions that are apparently pagan, like the Christmas tree and the holly and just other stuff when you actually look it up. And it's like I totally get that. And I don't know, it's like knowing too much is obviously a bummer. And it kind of messes with your mind about what do you want to choose to believe and continue to do with your life and carry out. And, because if you're decorating your whole house for Halloween and it looks dark, like what kind of energy are you actually putting out? Like, I had this great friend who is a fashion designer, and she's very, very, very talented. But I've spoken to her, and I'm like, listen, and she believes in, God and Jesus and the Bible, and her stuff is, maybe it's because I have a more spiritual discernment, and I'm closer to God than I have ever been, where I'm able to look at her work now and be like, it is really dark and to me demonic. And I know that, Satan wasn't like a true angel of darkness. He's like an angel of light and was one of the most beautiful angels ever to be seen. In fact, I think music emanates or, comes off of Satan. He's very deceptive in that way, but this is a tangent. But I had to tell her recently because I was like, I'm saying this out of love. I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you need to reassess your walk with God and look at the work that you're churning out. Like, it's kind of hard for me to word it, but she definitely got the point, and she wasn't offended, and she was really thankful that I reached out and spoke to her about that. And I don't know. Anyway, just like be aware of, I don't know, what you're wearing. And this is stuff that if my mom would have told me this, would have been like, shut up, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, okay. Like, too Christianly or just like Bible thumpery, like judging, just being like, oh, you don't know, I want to have fun. And now that I'm older and closer to God, I could totally understand where she was coming from. Anyway, let me just keep reading. These truths add a serious dimension to the viewing of violent and impure programs via electronic media. Can Christians just sit back and expect their children to sort through the garbage can and find something of value? Certainly you would agree that parents are responsible. They will be held accountable by God for what they allow. Generally, the media of today exalt unrighteous themes. Repeatedly, scenes appear involving obscenity, nudity, profanity, and others that more subtly destroy Christian values. Why would parents who are concerned about the drug scene, for instance, allow their children to view programs where the seriousness of such life-altering, health-threatening habits is belittled? Some people hate it when teenage violence is associated with electronic games or media, but reason makes it clear that what children or youth imbibe, they will become. Everyone is a product of his or her environment. The argument, of course, is that electronic media is necessary for businesses to operate efficiently. Actually, many businesses do well without the internet. Even if businesses do suffer, we nonetheless gain if we protect our own soul and the souls of our children. God blesses those who are serious enough about him that they honor him in everything they do. The psalmist recounts how the children of Israel did not destroy the nations that the Lord had commanded them to destroy. What happened? They were mingled among the heathen and learned their works, and they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils and shed innocent blood. Psalm 106, 35-38. This same progression is happening with multimedia programming. Mingled, learned, served, sacrificed. Will we also shed the innocent blood of our children? God forbid. For every Christian home to succeed, all evil influences must be avoided. We must take our accountability seriously. We must be examples of godly cross-bearing and discipline. We must cry out against the destruction of the home by showing the world that the entertainment craze is a mark of the last times. Let us immerse ourselves in the Word of God. By believing, by obeying, and by teaching the wonderful truth of salvation through Christ, we lift up a standard that will bring God's blessings and power upon us, that our children may be saved from this corrupt generation. Eliminate the ungodly influences in your home. Television and radio, and now the web, have lied to you and have seduced you long enough. The Apostle Paul made the challenge clear through the divine inspiration. Quote, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Galatians 5:16. So that was one of the little pamphlets, and I found out to be phenomenal and fantastic and had so much truth to it, and I love it. So this pamphlet, the next one's called Christian Attire. I'm going to skip over some of it because it's a longer one, and this chapter is called The Body and Attire. Let's see. The sense most involved is sight. Jesus warned about committing the sin of adultery by looking, Matthew 5:28. Looking at each other, we see either the body or the clothing that covers it. Both the one who looks and the one who is seen should be instructed by God's revelation and directed by his will. The one who looks to be pure in thought, and the one who is seen to cover the body with apparel, modest in color and design. So I'm going to butt in here and say, I will say parts of this is like, you can look at it as being really strict. You know, obviously the Amish where, I forgot what it's called. Oh, it's in here actually. It is called, I'm almost there. Anabaptist clothes, and I honestly had no idea that's what it's called. The Amish women wear like the long dress that covers their sleeves and goes down to their ankles, and then the men, I don't remember what the men wear. It's just very plain, nothing exciting clothing. So, but if you, I don't know, just think of it that like they eliminate like worldly desires and any distraction that or a path that can lead you to sin. And I think, honestly, clothing does have a huge part of that. And there have been instances in my life where certain stuff I've worn has literally pulled in demonic energy. Like, I'm not going to go into detail because it's a very personal thing that happened in my life. But I don't think it's a coincidence. Let me continue reading. In the Garden of Eden, man sinned and became inherently sinful. God, by his own immediate act, covered the body of both man and woman. Christian men and women help each other to maintain pure thoughts and actions by wearing attire that sufficiently covers. The purpose is to keep the opposite gender, which I wonder why, when did we start saying gender? But anyway, from seeing the parts of the body or clothing that stimulate the passions. It is the harlot that was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls and was full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Christian men and women who know the truth and respect it will not expose bare upper arms and legs, or wear sheer materials that show body lines with shadows that incite lust. They will also refrain from wearing tight or loose garments designed to emphasize the masculine or feminine parts of the body. Bright colors such as purple and scarlet will be refused. There goes the Republican Party, because like the Republican Party always wears red. That's the color they wear, and the Democrat is the blue. Anyway. Let me continue. Women's dress lines, such as short skirts and sleeves, low necklines, tight waists, sheer hose, flesh-colored hose, slacks, and jeans will be refused because of their sensual signification and stimulation. The Christian, in a positive way, gives testimony to Christ by his attire. He will be always bearing about in the body the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our body. He can truthfully say, I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Jesus. The purity of Jesus calls us to be like him. Our dress practice can show the purity of our character to others. Next chapter thing is called Character and Attire. A pure mind, I don't know how you say this word, chaste, chaste, body, and modest apparel belong together. You know a sloven by his dress when you see him. To dress in a way that indicates purity when the character is vile makes one a hypocrite, as does dressing like a harlot when one is pure. A hypocrite cannot live righteously. Character and attire are closely related. The Bible brings them together. In Isaiah 3, the women of Israel are said to dress wrongly and to have a bad character. God pronounced a curse upon them. Solomon said that the harlot is dressed like one and that her house is the way to hell. Ugh. Paul says that a woman professing godliness should dress modestly. Peter says that modest hair arrangement, modest clothing, and no jewelry go with a meek and quiet spirit. Unless we are hypocrites, the kind of clothes we wear show what kind of characters we are. We often think of character when we see a person whom we do not know. Is that stranger we see a dandy, a harlot, or a Christian? I don't know what the hell a dandy is. Let's see. Define dandy. Oops, what the heck? What the heck? Taking an hour. I don't think it's... dandy is a man unduly devoted to style, neatness, and fashion and dress appearance. Hilarious. Like, that's so dandy. I guess that means neat and devoted to fashion, and it's also an adjective, and it says North American informal means excellent. Things are all fine and dandy. Interesting. Okay, anyway. Is he proud or humble, negligent or careful, cleanly or slovenly, moderate or extreme? When persons, like some animals, can change appearance with every change of surroundings, it shows their changeableness of character. Hold on, let me read that again. When persons, like some animals, change appearance with every change of surroundings, it shows their changeableness of character. Is that good or bad? It doesn't say. Who knows? Pride expressed in dress is a ruling sin in many hearts and is not confined to any one age or sex, and it shows pride in the person's character. Isn't that weird? They say sex here, not gender. Anyway. The woman of bad character uses her clothing to attract the attention of men. She will wear bright colors, select large-figured fabrics. I don't know what that means. Large-figured fabrics. I guess that means like floppy clothing that gets your attention? I honestly don't know. Anyway, expose or emphasize her body by the fashion of her dress, all for her bad purpose, and other simple women will try to excel her. First of all, I'm going to butt in here and say this is so true. I'm going to outdo what they're wearing. Anyway, sinful men are wise to her and respond to her appeals to sin while she traps some innocent men, but the pure men who are informed will flee from her as from a snare. The woman of good character also uses her clothing, but for a different purpose. She tells by modest colors, small figures, and designs that cover her body that her character is pure, her spirit yielded to Christ, and her purposed good. Her attire speaks of her holy life and her obedience to Christ. By her attire, she speaks of what Christ, by his word and spirit, have wrought in her life, so winning men to Christ. Okay. Clothing reflects character. To some people, dress is their God. It has been proved many times that all men who become like the God they worship. It has been proved many times that all men become, like the God they worship. The person who follows fashion becomes fickle and unstable. This is surely an unchristian quality of character. The effect of attire on conduct has recently been stated in this way. If you dress your boy like a bum, he will act like a bum. May we say, if we dress our children like dandies or harlots, they will act like dandies and harlots? If this is true, what a generation of sinners is being raised in America today. The semi-nudity of our time affects the character of today, producing fornicators, adulterers, and divorcees at an alarming rate. The Christian man will not find it too hot to wear his shirt and trousers, nor the Christian woman her full dress. They think more of the effect their attire will have on their own and others' character than of their immediate bodily comfort. So I'll stop reading from that one and continue. Again, that one's called Christian Attire. And there isn't a website on these little pamphlets, but it is made by Rod and Staff Publishers Incorporated in Crockett, Kentucky. They have a telephone number, 606-522-5348. So I guess you wanted to talk to them or something, you could probably do that. This pamphlet is called, let me just go on to this one because I have too much to read, honestly. The Gift of Fatherhood, Building the Domestic Church series. I think this was put out by some Catholic people, which is confusing because I don't know. I just thought that Amish people did one. Sorry, I'm getting texted. I'm staring at. I thought Amish people only did like one religion, but I have no idea, to be honest. Let's see. All right, I guess I don't know. It's written by, who is this written by? Father Carter H. Griffin. Yeah, lift my head because my head hurts. My interest in fatherhood began about 20 years ago in the U.S. Navy before I entered the seminary. I was a young officer on a ship responsible for a number of men in my division. I had been well trained to deal with Navy tactics, regulations, communications, chain of command, and many other important things. But I wasn't nearly as prepared for what took well over half my time, dealing with the personal problems of the guys in my division. It was remarkable what some of these well-intentioned men were doing. One bought a 9-year-old Mustang at 22% annual interest, though he couldn't even make the first payment, let alone cover the whole loan. Another fellow had given a general power of attorney to a young lady he had met a week before deploying and came back with nothing, completely wiped out. There was so much confusion in their lives stemming from a lack of discipline and a failure to plan or set reasonable goals. It was clear to me that they had never really been shown how to be men by their fathers, and I saw up close and personal some of the effects of this crisis in fatherhood. At 22 years old, I was basically being a father to these men, some of whom were much older than I. To really help them, I needed to know not only their immediate actions, but also to understand their underlying problems. Obviously, what I experienced is not a universal phenomenon. There are many wonderful, holy, capable fathers who are generous and kind, but there are many who struggle with this vocation to fatherhood. This is called 3 Focal Points for Fatherhood. In talking about fatherhood, I would like to make 3 basic points. The first, to identify the crisis. Let me just continue on actually here. Let us look first at the crisis, which can be summarized by how fatherhood is portrayed in our mass media. Several years ago, the New York Times columnist John Tierney wrote an article entitled The Doofus Dad, in which he traced in popular culture a common trope, the clueless, ineffective father, citing shows like Jimmy Neutron, The Sopranos, Malcolm in the Middle, and Everybody Loves Raymond. He concluded that according to primetime depictions, today's fathers are oblivious, troubled, deranged, and generally incompetent. He cited a study by the National Fatherhood Initiative showing that fathers on national television are 8 times more likely to be portrayed negatively as mothers in that medium. There's a popular animated show called The Amazing World of Gumball. Here is a description of that show's father character from the official website. Dad is a giant pink dummy rabbit. He spends most of his time at home watching TV and playing video games. As Wikipedia describes, a father has a large appetite and is a voracious eater. He does not appear to have any degree of responsibility or intelligence. Think Homer Simpson, only less responsible. That, in a nutshell, is what people so often hear about fathers from movies, TV shows, commercials, and music. Contrast that to the good and strong fathers of the past and Leave It to Beaver or The Andy Griffith Show. This negative father image would probably be harmless if it were an isolated thing, but in our popular culture, it's far too common. And a steady diet of this will lead us to conclude that dads have become irrelevant at best and harmful at worst. Someone recently emailed me a list of a church bulletin bloopers that was making the rounds on the internet. One of them read, "Ladies, don't forget the rummage sale. It's a chance to get rid of those things not worth keeping around the house. Don't forget your husbands." While that is a humorous misplacement of words, it certainly finds an echo in the cultural understanding of fatherhood today. I would argue that this is aided and abetted by certain uses of technology, such as the very aggressive forms of reproductive technology, in vitro fertilization, cloning, and surrogate parenthood. Of course, our long-standing abortion laws, in which a father has no say in the personal prenatal life of the child he helped conceive, have been perhaps the most powerful force of separating a man from his fatherhood. In all of these examples, the message is the same. Fathers are largely irrelevant. To get to the bottom of the problem, we need to find the source of the minimalistic understanding of fatherhood. I would argue that it is not a rejection of fatherhood per se. I think the problem of modern fatherhood rests in a more general rejection of authority that has taken place in the last 50 years. As authority figures, fathers have been under attack by a culture that is stuck in adolescence due in part to a culture that exalts the autonomous self. I saw a beautiful Father's Day card with the message, "When I was a child, Dad, I thought you knew everything, when I was a teenager, I thought you knew nothing. Now that I'm an adult, I realize you know quite a lot. We're kind of stuck in the middle stage. Dad, I think you know nothing." If that's where we are today, how do we get out of this situation? It is a fact of human psychology that if you repeat a message enough times, you tend to believe it. If you are told over and over again that you are worthless and not needed, then eventually you begin to accept it. In the case of fathers, this message has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think there has been, for various reasons, an increase in male narcissism, a lack of confidence, a depression, and anger, a feeling of being detached and discarded, and the result has been that many men have become the very thing that the popular culture has said they are. As with all issues involving psychology and social interaction, cause and effect are often difficult to identify. Yet this is a great irony in this downgrading of fatherhood. Just as we are being told how irrelevant fathers are, we are discovering in the social sciences just how vital a father is in family life. Never before have we had so much evidence of the importance of the role, dignity, and nobility of a father, and just how vital a figure he is in the welfare of his children. By any measure, children who grow up without an involved father start life at a distinct disadvantage and are correlated with negative results. We know many heroic examples of men and women who have overcome the circumstances of their upbringing, but whether you look at poverty rates, out-of-wedlock births, drug abuse, physical abuse, suicide, or any number of negative outcomes, not having a father in your life is one of the highest risk factors. I've heard a psychologist say that prisons are basically dormitories for fatherless men. The percentage of men in prison who have limited paternal influence is so high that it is impossible to ignore. I thought that was really wonderful, and it continues on now. Stop reading from there, but this one was put out by Knights of Columbus Catholic Information Service, which is kofc.org/CIS. And I know the whole Knights thing is like, for me in my head, what I know is kind of interesting because I'm like, oh lordy, it's Freemasons, and the whole Freemason thing is always fascinating to me, and I do think there's some validity to it being evil. People say that founding fathers were Freemasons and they were evil in some way, and I guess it's just hard to wrap my head around and maybe accept that being true. So I just don't know. I know that my grandfather was a Freemason, and I don't know, it's interesting and heavy stuff, I suppose. So yeah, let's see. This one's put out, it's called Finding True Happiness by Fulton Sheen. Again, it's compliments of Knights of Columbus. Oh, excuse me. Oh, lordy. This is the last one I'll read from, by the way. Finding perfect happiness. Are you perfectly happy, or are you looking for happiness? There can be no doubt that at one time or another in your life, you attained that which you believed would make you happy. When you got what you wanted, were you happy? Do you remember when you were a child how ardently you looked forward to Christmas? How happy you thought you would be with your fill of cakes, your hands glutted with toys, and your eyes dancing with the lights on the tree. Christmas came, and after you had eaten your fill, blown out the last Christmas candle, and played till your toys no longer amused, you climbed into your bed and said, in your own little heart of hearts, that somehow or other it did not quite come up to your expectations. And have you not lived that experience over 1,000 times since? Maybe it was a desire to be well known that you craved. You did become well known, only to find that reputation is like a ball. As soon as it starts rolling, men begin to kick it around. Ugh. The fact is, you want to be perfectly happy, but you are not. Your life has been a series of disappointments, shocks, and disillusionments. How have you reacted to your disappointments? Either you became cynical, or else you became religious. If you became cynical, you blamed things rather than yourself. If you were married, you said, if I had another husband or another wife, I would be happy. Or you said, if I had another job, or if I visited another nightclub, or if I were in another city, I would be happy. In every instance, you made happiness extrinsic to yourself. No wonder you are never happy. You are chasing mirages until death overtakes you. But cynicism did not work, because in seeking pleasures, you miss the joys of life. Pleasure is of the body, joy is of the mind and heart. Lobster Newberg, I have no idea what that is, by the way, gives pleasure to certain people, but not even the most avid lobster fans would ever say that it made them joyful. You can quickly become tired of pleasures, but you can never tire of joys. A pleasure can be increased to a point where it ceases to be a pleasure. It may even be to be a pain if carried beyond a certain point. But the joy of a good conscience, or the joy of the first communion, or the discovery of truth never turns to pain. Furthermore, if you notice that as your desire for pleasure increased, the satisfaction for the pleasure decreased. Do you think a philosophy of life is a right that is based in the law of diminishing returns? You think you're having a good time, but time really is the greatest obstacle in the world of happiness. Not only because it makes you pleasure, I can't read, I'm like tired, or I don't even know. If I read for too much, I just wind up fumbling over the words, so I won't read much longer. Not only because it makes you take pleasures successfully, also it's very obvious that I don't read out loud often. Anyway, but also because you are never really happy until you're unconscious of the passing of time. The more you look at the clock, the less happy you are. The more you enjoy yourself, the less conscious you are of the passing time. You say, time passed like everything else. Maybe therefore your happiness has something to do with the eternal. Why are you disappointed? Because of the tremendous disproportion between your desires and your realizations. Your soul has a certain infinity about it because it is spiritual, but your body, like the world about you, is material, limited, cabined, cribbed, and confined. You can imagine a mountain of gold, but you will never see one. In like manner, you will look forward to some earthly pleasure or position or state in life. Once you attain it, you begin to feel the tremendous disproportion between the ideal you imagine and the reality you possess. Disappointment follows. Every earthly ideal is lost by being possessed. For the more material your ideal, the greater the disappointment. The more spiritual it is, the less the disillusionment. I'm going to stop reading because I'm like, ugh, wordy. But, I just found these. I knew these booklets were going to be amazing because, like I said, I don't know much about the Amish, but I do know they have a very simple way of life. And I've always admired it. Well, the older I get, the more I definitely admired it. And the more I realize how much the internet and social media and all these apps are really destroying human connection. Like, God, my sister got engaged recently. My other sister texted, like, oh, you better get a pedicure, like, in the photo, because she obviously showed a photo of her hand and showing the rock on her hand. She's basically being like, get a manicure before you post it to social media. And my sister was like, yep, I am today. And I'm like, who gives a shit, dude? Like, this only further solidifies that what people put on social media is not even reality. Like, you care more about what people think about you on social media that you'll, like, just go through that effort of, you weren't planning to get a manicure, but there you are going to get a manicure. Like, I'm just like, way to, like, dehumanize that moment and make it really fake. And I don't know, I was just like, that made me sick to my stomach. And my mom definitely overpressured how important it is that people judge you by the way you look. And I don't know, a lot of my family is vain. And I'm glad that I've had circumstances in my life that have really broken the spell of that. And, like, I don't know, my husband had a great talk about it this morning, and how, my siblings probably obviously haven't had circumstances happen where they were able to break that spell and stop caring about what other people think about them and how much they care about how they look. And I mean, obviously there's some level of you caring about how you look where, you'll brush your hair or put some makeup on and whatever, get dressed up. But just, I think you guys get what I'm saying. Just going through that effort of, like, I don't know. I mean, at the same time, I don't mind people wanting to look pretty, but really it's like, I don't know, I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's all for today. I hope you guys are having a wonderful holiday season. I hope you have a blessed, healthy, safe Christmas day and a wonderful New Year. And thanks so much for listening. You can support my podcast by heading to paypal.me/LP Foster Kittens. LP as in my first initial, which is Lindsay, L. And then last name is Platoshin, which is a P. And then you can become a monthly subscriber on subscribestar.com/subscribestar. Wait, what? Woo, zone out there. Subscribestar.com/distorted lens. I know I was talking about previously that I wanted to change my podcast handle because my mom's like, oh, you used to see Life Through Distorted Lens, but now that you don't, maybe you can you can make it Clear Lens. And I'm like, oh, Lordy. I've thought about that, but it's so involved. I had to change the name on Podbean, on social media, and my Subscribestar name, and I don't know. I'll just sit with it. It sounds fun, and I know it's misleading, and someone has taken it the wrong way and thought I was a pro-trans person on social media, and I was like, no, not at all, dude. So it is what it is, and I don't know. I've never heard of anyone actually changing the title of their podcast. I know it's possible, but I don't think it's a good idea. Anywho, thanks again for listening and supporting my work. Tell your friends about my podcast and link them to your friend and tell them, just be like, hey, listen to this, or listen at 20-minute mark that she says this, and, just word of mouth is always a good idea too. And my shop is still open. I still have my Skeptic pens available that I love and I know others love. And I have my, embroidery machine and whatnot set up now so I can make that stuff that's in the shop, which is lindsayplatotionart.com. And on the top bar, it says shop. I think it's also lindsayplatotionart.com/shop. Anyway, thank you guys and gals for listening, and God bless y'all.